This is your reality check.
Hi everyone, and welcome to The Reality Check, the Canadian show that explores a wide range of controversies and curiosities using science and critical thinking. I am your host, Darren McKee, and with me, as usual, is Adam Gardner.
What's up, Cuboidicus?
We have a great show for you today. Adam and I are going to discuss Christopher Nolan's movie, The Odyssey. There will be many spoilers.
Oh, yes.
So, if you haven't seen the movie and you want to see the movie, I do recommend not listening to this podcast until you've seen the movie.
Go see it in 70mm IMAX, and then you can listen to the show in 3 months after you get a ticket for it.
There you go. So we are not experts, but we both saw this movie, and we thought, why don't we cover it kind of like we did with the Superman movie, again, with less knowledge, though.
Yeah, that's right. More like our Oppenheimer review, where we didn't know as much about the source material, maybe.
Right. So this will be semi-structured, not really that structured. It's going to be not necessarily a deep dive into the original Homeric epic, but we'll touch on that briefly in comparison to the Nolan work. And it's really just a chit-chat Adam and I are having about a movie we've both seen, and we haven't talked about it much yet, so we don't quite know each other's takes. Just as a little grounding, the movie came out at this point a couple weeks ago. We're recording this at the end of July. It's over $700 million at the box office, on its way to $1 billion. So clearly this is worked out as a bet. The main approach Nolan took was grounded realism to try to make this more plausible for an audience and to make it as accessible as possible for an audience. And those driving forces, I think, will really determine how you feel about this movie. If you like the idea of accessibility, ground realism, you might be like, okay, I can see what he's doing. I like that. And if you're like, no, this is garbage, it could be for some of those reasons. So we'll just start by giving an overall impression, then Adam will do an overall, then we'll start going through stuff in detail.
Great.
Overall, I enjoyed it. I thought this was a good movie. I liked a lot of the interpretations. I thought a lot of how Nolan's takes on this were very interesting. There were some very, very memorable scenes. That said, to me, it was not a masterpiece. And I often felt, acting-wise, a lot of the actors seemed like they were playing a role versus they were the role themselves. So we can come back into that. But so I initially thought, is this 8 out of 10? Something close to that, maybe 7.5 out of 10. But then, as is typical with me, by the way, once I've seen a movie, then I learn a lot more about how it's made. Yeah. And I find that very impressive. And then I want to give them more credit because it's so hard to do. And given it's Christopher Nolan, there were very few, if any, green screens. Yes, there were some CGI effects here and there, but they were largely practical effects. And I think nowadays, when we see a ship on an ocean, we're not used to knowing it's an actual ship on actual water, which is so much harder. Yes. Let alone all the other things we can get into there about force perspective and whatnot, one way or another. So, Adam, overall impressions, what did you think?
I liked it. There was obviously like a lot of discourse and a lot of negativity about the film, so I was kind of like, maybe it'll be terrible, but whatever, I'll watch it. But no, I think there wasn't much validity to a lot of that, and I thought it was good. So I enjoyed it. I'm putting in a kind of like 8-9 out of 10 kind of point frame. Maybe that's a 4.5 star Letterboxd review. I haven't written my Letterboxd review yet. Maybe
but 9 out of 10 is pretty high.
Yeah. And no, I thought it was good. Obviously, it's it wasn't perfect, but since this is like a work that's been adapted so much, I just have this attitude of like, just kind of do your own thing. Like, it doesn't have to be the definitive version of the Odyssey. It's like, this is Christopher Nolan's version of the Odyssey. That said, like, I really like Christopher Nolan. So even though, like, I like this movie, maybe this is like my 7th favorite Christopher Nolan movie, right? And that's still high praise just because I really like a bunch of the other ones,
That's true. Yes. In a way, there's like the more the merrier, right? If you like some other adaptation, that adaptation still exists. Yeah. This is just another one. So that's why I try to see when there's Superman interpretations. That said, for a lot of people, this will be definitive because they will probably not explore other versions.
Yes, I'd never read any version of the Odyssey 2 months ago, right?
But that said, you and I have both done more research on it. And for educators, this, huge spotlight now on this topic, which many people who are into the world of classics want more people to think about. Now they actually will. They can compare and contrast. They say, well, Nolan did this, but the book says that. And you could see this as a very impressive, like, educational move, so to speak, where so many more children now, or younger people, are going to be more interested. And even to force to, enable a cultural moment. We don't have as much of that. Yes, the World Cup just happened, but movie-wise, sometimes a big movie comes out. Maybe it was the Avatars and then sometimes a Marvel movie. But it's been a while since it was a non-superhero movie that was so compelling culturally.
Kind of makes me think of when the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings films came out. Like, I hadn't read The Lord of the Rings. A lot of my friends had. It's very popular books. But at that time, I made an effort to read those books, and it was great. And it was like a moment. And now I feel like people are just more familiar with those books, with those works. It's probably something similar to that, although this is obviously slightly older material.
Yes. So maybe we'll just try to break down some of these themes. So one would be, say the costumes and so on. I thought this was generally fine. There is lots of historical inaccuracy, right? When people would say like, well, the helmets didn't look like that. The costumes didn't look like that. They're not colorful enough. The weapons don't look like this. The ship's not right. And the ships are not costumes. But I was sort of like, well, okay, it is pretty dark and gray as an overall thematic experience.
Sure.
It's darker and somber.
Yeah.
The ancient world was much brighter. The sea would have been brighter. The color, the clothing,
statues would have had color.
Correct. The statues would have color. The buildings would have had color. It would have seemed gaudy to our eyes. And it could be that Nolan, for his, I want this to be a more serious tone, because that's really what it is. To have bright color would maybe just be confusing to the modern audience. So I'm, trying to be a bit more forgiving there. I know some people thought like that helmet makes no sense, but I thought Agamemnon's helmet looked cool. I think it really did.
Cool.
I was like, you know what? I think it looks cool. I don't care what other people say. It looks cool. So that's my take on that.
It was funny. Reading some of the criticism, people were like, oh my God, look at this guy, he's wearing pants. And I'm like, this is so old. Like, people didn't wear pants. And then I kind of looked it up and I'm like, did pants even exist? And it was like, pants existed in other cultures, and like the Greeks made fun of pants. And I'm like, that's crazy.
Funny.
So yeah. So when I saw the pants, I'm like, oh my God, what's Tom Holland doing?
That's
pants?
That's very
terrible.
funny. Like, that guy's in jeans. What? Oh, that doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
So then I guess, I don't know, we could talk about the acting broadly. So my issue, again, this different strokes, different folks. It seemed so American to me. And that's what he was going for. So I think he succeeded in his vision. I'll say that. But for me, it didn't work as well. And I think this is not just that everyone had an American accent, which they did. It's that the acting quality could have been better. And then this intersects with the script. So I'm going to we'll get punt at him in a moment. But the issue is not necessarily the sequence of events, but the dialogue.
Yep.
Adam, can you think of one memorable line from the entire movie?
Let's go. So I think there is a hilarious thing that happens for any medieval work.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't take place in England, that they give everyone British accents.
I know they do.
And we are so used to this that it is alien to us to see otherwise. So for this to be adapted in more or less American English, it's not ancient Greek, which doesn't even sound like modern Greek. So intellectually, I know it doesn't matter, but there's a part of me that's just like, don't say dad, say father.
Right.
But like, I don't say father.
Right.
I would just say dad. So it's very weird. And it's just like, it exposes it to me, but it was very unnatural. And it makes me think of like in Game of Thrones, they're talking like the common tongue. They're not talking English. Or in Star Wars, they're talking basic.
Yes.
It's like, but it's presented as English. We're just used to these weird things. Right?
The other issue is that whether the original poem was supposed to be accessible to a broad range of people, which I believe it was. So it's not like the Greek was especially complicated. No. But I think there are turns of phrase in the original poem, which are just nice turns of phrase.
Yeah.
Good, but in the entire movie, almost nothing stands out.
Oh, I see. So it was not particularly quotable, as opposed to like Batman Begins is very quotable.
Well, but like, but even, like what we do in life echoes in eternity.
Yes.
You're like, this is a great line.
That's great.
This is a line which you could say forever and it's still good, let alone Maximus Decimus Meridius, da-da-da-da-da-da, right? And that's much more of a pop historical Roman type thing. Like, so there wasn't, I can't think of one, let alone something poignant of either, death, sorrow, valor, shame, whatever it is. It was fine. But I just thought, like, why is the writing not that good? I don't know why they made that choice. So you could have had American accents, simple language, but just more elegance?
Yes.
More poignancy?
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
So I don't know why that, because obviously they made choices, and I think he's capable of writing.
Well, he has.
or his brother did.
It's beer o'clock and I'm buying, whatever. He's written a lot of good stuff, or his brother's written a lot of good stuff.
I can't remember. I know Goyer wrote some of the other superhero stuff, but clearly, if you have all of these other movies, let alone all the memes that come out of Inception and Leo and whatnot. So I just thought that was an odd choice. Even in Oppenheimer, like, you're not just self-important, you're actually important.
Yeah.
This is a great line.
Yeah.
This line stuck with me. And I was in the Odyssey, I'm like, nothing stuck with me. So yes, I am Canadian enough that British seems elegant enough. And especially, as you write, the historical, older British speech is how history is made. So there's probably some baked in colonialism there. But I think so if you separate it out, it's not the Americanness itself. I think it was the language and also the performance. So then we go back to the acting. The acting to me was fine. These are good actors.
Yes.
I like Matt Damon. I like Anne Hathaway. I like a lot of people in this movie. But watching this, I realized, I'm like, but they're not the most amazing actors. I think there's a tier above. So when I think of truly top tier, you have maybe like Leonardo DiCaprio, you have Christian Bale, you have Daniel Day-Lewis, you have like these sorts of people. And so when I'm looking at Matt Damon, part of me is like, it's still Matt Damon to me. And Anne Hathaway is kind of Anne Hathaway. I think she's a bit better. Robert Pattinson seemed like Robert Pattinson pretending to be someone odious. And then John Bernthal, like he's himself as he always is. And like, come on, man, like do something a little different. Tom Holland is fine as Spider-Man. As the son here, he's okay. As Zendaya, she's barely in it and she's just there. So I just thought like, oh, you know, they didn't have, this is also a bit biased. They didn't have what we might say is like the older noble anchor.
Yes.
Right? Where you have Jeremy Irons.
Sure.
Or it used to be Peter O'Toole. They had that, the other ones. Or, you know, just any Morgan Freeman, right? Now, that said, Samantha Morton as Cersei was fantastic. And I also think John Leguizamo stole the show.
Oh, yeah.
John Leguizamo, to me, was the best performance of the whole movie. And I thought more should be like that. It doesn't mean every actor has to be less recognizable than they usually are, because John Leguizamo looked different than he usually does.
Sure.
But what a performance. Well, everyone else just didn't buy it as much. Adam, what do you think?
Maybe he had more to prove because he's come a long way since House of Buggin.
Or Spawn.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's great actors. They've been better in other Christopher Nolan movies because he reuses a lot of his actors. Samantha Morton, I didn't really recognize her from much. She was in Minority Report. She's probably got better lines as Agatha in Minority Report than she did in this movie, Don't Go Home. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there might have been like technical issues. Maybe they just had trouble acting because the IMAX camera was so big. Like, you know, there might have been other problems like that.
They didn't say they did, but then again, they're actors. They may not say that in all those promo pieces because they kept talking about, yes, this IMAX, and they had a blimp around it to muffle the sound, and they use a special mirror technique.
Yeah.
So then the actor could look at who they're acting towards, even if that actor was not as close to them as they otherwise would be. And at the end, he said, I don't remember looking in a mirror. That's what they said.
Yeah.
So they don't remember that as their experience. Now, you might be right. That said, I don't know, maybe you don't feel that way. Maybe you're like, yeah, it was all convincing to me. Or were you thinking, yeah, that's Matt Damon? Or did you think that's Odysseus when you're watching it?
Yeah. I mean, it was obviously Matt Damon. Like, right? He talked like, he didn't have a Boston accent, but like, it was obviously Matt Damon.
Do you have any idea how easy this is for me to go home?
Yeah. But I mean, I guess that's just, these are just like a lot of very popular actors that I've seen in so many things. It's hard.
Yes, but even like Robert Pattinson in other things is less recognizable. Or, you know, Willem Dafoe. In everything he's in, you're like, oh, he's just a really good actor. Yeah. And some people blend. Or even Gary Oldman was in Oppenheimer. And Cillian Murphy is a great actor. Scarecrow, Oppenheimer. And even to me, Matt Damon in Oppenheimer, not as good as Cillian Murphy. It just seemed like Matt Damon pretending to be the military guy. Yeah. And so again, I really like Matt Damon, but should he anchor a movie? Then this goes back, by the way, to my statement at the very beginning, which we'll keep returning to, is how do you make this movie as accessible as possible? You cast all these stars. You cast Matt Damon. Even Christopher Nolan said explicitly, Matt Damon is someone who can bring the audience along. Oh,
so you think maybe he was going for star power over acting ability?
Zendaya's in there for a few minutes. She's not doing much. And she's famous. Tom Holland's famous. Anne Hathaway's famous. Like, they're all really famous. Do any of them deliver amazing performances? I don't think so. They're probably going to get nominated for Oscars. Anne Hathaway's, I think, one of the better ones of those group. But it's not like... I think it was probably very hard to do all this work. And I know they worked long hours, but I guess there's a caliber above that I can see in terms of acting quality. Not that I can do it myself, but just in terms of what I enjoy watching. Sure. So we'll see. Why don't we briefly talk about the IMAX, because you mentioned that. So yes, this is the first feature-length film done in IMAX. It's been like a dream Nolan has had his entire life, perhaps. He experimented in some other movies, especially on Batman, especially on The Dark Knight, the middle of the Batman movies. But now he finally got... permission, allowance. He kind of got a blank check after Oppenheimer. That's what he said.
Yeah.
And he got a chance to do this type of thing. So IMAX are usually really, really loud. So they created both a new type of camera and a box they call a blimp to put around the camera to muffle the sound. Otherwise, you imagine every time you're filming, you can't get any audio. And you'd have to do all the audio dubbed over, which would be a huge pain in the butt. Because IMAX is film. The cartridges are 2.5, 3 minutes. So they have to keep reloading the film all the time. And then the film has to be under 3 hours because the projectors cannot play something longer than that.
Oh, I didn't realize that. So the movie itself. Yeah, because the reels are huge. I remember they had the projector at the Museum of it's called the Museum of History now, but the Museum of Civilization when I was younger.
Yeah.
And you could see it. It was in a glass room, and you could look at it and you see it spinning. It spins sideways instead of like we normally see.
Yes, they're remarkably large.
Yeah.
And so there's all these other constraints, and it's very heavy and they're very bulky and that sort of thing. And yes, there is true 70 millimeter IMAX, of which there are 41 of these on Earth theaters that you can see this in. So yeah, you sort of see those 9 in Canada, 25 in the States, and then a smattering in parts of Europe. So if you're in a lot of, again, the Earth, like all of Africa, most of Asia, South America, just no option. You can't see it in true IMAX.
I'm just going to fly to Montreal and watch it. Let me buy my ticket in a month.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. They got sold out much in advance because there aren't that many, and who wants to sit in the front row? I guess some people.
So what did you see it in an IMAX digital type of format?
IMAX digital standard, which is like 190 to 1.
Yeah.
Well, like true IMAX is like 135 to 1.
143 to 1.
Okay, there you go.
It's close to an old CRT TV shape.
Yeah, so for people trying to understand this, it's just the ratio, and it's much more square-like. So as you go from regular theater, it becomes more square to standard digital IMAX, which is what Adam and I both saw, to then true IMAX, which is even more square. But the IMAX screen itself is so large, it probably has a similar width to what you might be used to as a regular.
It just goes further
Exactly. It just goes further up.
Or up and down. Or
yeah, exactly. Up and down, whatever it is. So it's sort of like, it's not like they shrunk the sides so much as they just expand the top and the bottom. And from what I understand, when they shot this, they did shoot the most important thing in the center. So when you see it on other formats, it should be largely fine, but you are losing like 30% if you don't see it in at least some sort of IMAX system. You know, a lot of people are going to watch this on their smartphone.
It's kind of funny, the evolution of what we've gone through, right? So movies used to be close to what sort of the older TV shape was, 4:3. And then when TV was invented and it was a comparable shape, they decided to make movies wide because it said it was something unique that you would get in the theater, right? So, and they said it filled your vision more. So then you kind of had the pan and scan on home video, and it was this terrible era for whatever, like 40 years. And then we kind of like got widescreen TVs, and then they were the same. But now we're like going back. It's like, oh, you know what? We're going back to making it like fat again, and be like. And then I saw the excuse. It was like, it's better because it fills more of your vision. And be like, that's what you said when you made it wider. So which is it, right?
Oh, I'm going to say it's both. So we went wider to fill the peripheral vision horizontally.
Yes.
But now we're going taller vertically to fill the peripheral vision vertically.
Yes.
And I'm for it if you can somehow manage it. Otherwise, like with Zack Snyder's Justice League, if you watched it like at home, say, you're like, oh, there's a huge black bars on the side because that's how you have to somehow manage that ratio.
Yes.
This is also minor gripe aside. This has nothing to do with the movie. Phones are obviously rectangles, and we largely hold them vertically, and then we try to watch shows that might flip them sort of into landscape mode. When we take photos, nowadays, almost everyone does portrait mode, so to speak, vertical, and then they share stories. It's always that way.
Yeah, because my Instagram story is vertical.
Of course. But there's so much more room horizontally than vertically visually. And so every time like, but this photo should be horizontal. So a gripe, an old man gripe is, it's all the wrong size. Let's all turn our heads.
Now, I don't know what the IMAX situation, you grew up in Toronto, obviously. I grew up here in Ottawa. We used to go in with school to the museum to watch IMAX, and they have what they call an OmniMax. So it's the dome-shaped screen.
Right.
And it fills so much. I remember watching this when I was, 13, 14. When it panned, I felt the seats were moving. I grabbed onto my seat. Like, that's how immersive it was.
Yes.
They don't shoot Hollywood movies like that because then you can't just put it on a normal theater or you can't put it on a TV.
Right.
So it's kind of weird. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen like a 70 millimeter IMAX like full screen, but I have seen the OmniMax crazy thing. It just wasn't a commercial movie.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. I don't know if I've ever seen a true 70 millimeter IMAX on that correct screen. I have done somewhere at a science center somewhere where there's some sort of like space journey, right? These 15, 20 minute videos where it's so big it fills your entire field of vision, and you do feel perhaps like other things are moving. But I do not recall seeing a true IMAX anywhere.
But also like, it's funny that like we went from film to digital. Now we're going back to... It's funny because we used to watch everything 35 millimeter. And I remember in 2005, I went to see Star Wars Episode 3 in Toronto. I was on a business trip. And I went to see it twice because it was like so hard to find digital. It was impossible. Now everything's digital. Everything's digital. And now these hipster theaters, they do 35 millimeter screenings. And I go, oh my God, this is so cool. I'm going to see 35 mil, or I want to watch this 70 millimeter real film. Yeah. So probably like when I watched 300 at Silver City, it's now called Scotiabank Theatre in Ottawa, it was probably film, IMAX.
Could be.
but it wouldn't have been the same aspect, right?
True. It also makes maybe more sense for this movie because the way Nolan shoots things, and he really is embracing, we'll say, the granularity of the film, not just fancy digital effects.
Well, and every scene is IMAX too.
Well, that's true. Also, so by the way, they digitized for the editing.
Of course.
But then they went back, of course, and cut the original IMAX. So like, and then the color grading, like, again, lots of work going into this.
Yeah. So but yeah, they're not like editing in a 1080p or a 4K version. I think it's like an 18K, like crazy high resolution, like digital file they have, right?
Since we're on this topic, which is remotely related, how things were shot, I think it was visually very well done. Oh, yeah. I think there were a lot of fantastic scenes. We can get into some of those specifically, but I will have a minor gripe here is that often I thought there wasn't enough focus. And I asked two people who've seen it. They didn't notice it. Adam's looking at me like he did not notice this either. Notice. And at least some people online noticed, so it's not just me.
So did you feel things that were not the central focus of the scene were out of focus, like a narrow...
depth of field? Yeah. So it's more on someone's face. Oh. Not so the ships at sea, no. Yep. Big creatures, no. Yep. Battle scenes, no. Everything is fine. But when it has like a face talking to another face, sometimes it'd be a little less focus. And I think this is because Hoyt, who I think was the main cinematographer or director of photography, the camera that they're using has such a narrow, if that's the right term, depth of field that if the face is not fully facing you, head on, the whole face is not in focus already.
So I can't get both the nose and the ear in focus at the same time.
Or everything is perfectly set up, but as soon as the character moves, as I remember Anne Hathaway moving like forward and back once, and I'm like,
she's getting into it.
Correct, of course, she should. And I'm like, I want to yell out like, focus! I almost want to yell this out because for me it's distracting. Like, why is this blurry?
Well, do you think that could have affected the quality of the acting because they felt too constrained?
And
they didn't even stay in place.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I think it's interesting even at this caliber that they chose to accept this trade-off. Yeah. Because certainly someone would have seen this and said like, oh, run it again, right? Or don't move, or we got to change the depth of field or something.
Could it be that the level of like clarity and resolution that we saw it in was so high that you would perceive these minor problems that you wouldn't have in a normal projection?
I don't think so. No. That's tricky. I'm not sure. I don't go to see theatrical movies a lot, so this was a different experience in its own right. Mm-hmm. But it just seemed more like, if I noticed it, it's actually taking me out of the experience.
Yeah, for sure.
And because I was like, maybe it was intentional. Like, I don't think so. There'd be very little to be gained from Anne Hathaway talking to her son, like slightly out of focus, and then back in focus as she's moving back and forth. Like, it would make no sense as a stylistic choice, at least in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So if any of you nerds also notice this, please let me know so I feel validated. But
I think part of it is like, they can't move that camera easily. It's big.
They cannot.
It's hard to focus.
They cannot.
It's probably very difficult, just technically very difficult.
I mean, I see it also in like many movies and TV shows in general. And I think like for lower quality things, people just don't care. Like it's a little out of focus, like no one cares. So what? But because it's Christopher Nolan, because there's this eye for detail, because it's going to be such a big thing, and because it cost $250 million anyway, I thought, you might have everything in focus.
Yeah.
So if we're thinking about the movie itself, going somewhat sequentially, it starts off, right, with this glimpse of the beach of Troy. Then we have Penelope, played by Anne Hathaway, talking to Telemachus, her son, played by Spider-Man, Thomas Holland. And here, Tom is supposed to be young, because depending on the interpretation, there's a 10-year war, and Odysseus takes 10 years to come home. So that's 20 years.
So he should be about 21.
Should be 21, right? Left when he was a baby. Tom Holland in an interview said he played him as if he was 16.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then Robert Pattinson's like, yeah, but it was 20 years, right? And he actually goes like, he actually looks surprised and concerned. He's like, did I? Uh-oh.
Part of me feels that even in the source material, because it's kind of like a collection of stories that are weaved together, it's like, was it always supposed to be 20? Because that dog's too old. And like the son is explained as being younger than he should be.
Well, from the original, again, different sources here, but I think it's that the suitors show up 17 years in.
Oh, so they haven't actually been there that long.
Well, because first the war has to end.
Oh, yeah,
right? And then they're going to have some leeway sometime.
Yes.
And they haven't been there the whole 10 years, at least by the story. So then if he's 17 when they start, and then it's 3 years, that makes some sense.
That does.
I also think it makes sense to structure the narrative in this flashback back and forth in time way. That's how the original narrative is structured. Not the exact same way, but enough that the way Nolan has done it, you get to keep going back to like the Battle of Troy, which is of great significance for Odysseus. Odysseus. And then there's this nice sort of resolution where everything builds towards the end. There's like 3 or 4 different plot points that all resolve.
Yep.
So at least in that initial stages, I think this is fine. This is just the setup, right? But I will say like, Tom Holland and Anne Hathaway are not going to carry this movie for me. Like I actually thought like, oh, this is not. Then they're like, oh, okay.
That's why John Leguizamo and the dog were there.
Right. That dog did some great acting. And then we get to more Odysseus stuff, and then we get to Troy.
Troy is odd to me because the sack of Troy isn't really part of this story. It is just kind of referenced in this story. So I was a bit like, oh, how are they even going to show the sack of Troy? But like, obviously the horse is in the poster. It's a big part of it. But also like, they didn't really show the sack. I mean, they did show scenes, but it was almost like they were remembering the sack of Troy. It did kind of take place outside of the narrative of the story that we are mainly getting.
Yes, so you're right. I thought, because I have not read the Iliad nor the Odyssey, although now I'm on Stephen Fry's The Odyssey and I've read some other things. I had thought, in my ignorance, the Iliad was about the Battle of Troy.
I don't think it is.
It is not. There are like 7 books, of which only 2 survived. We get the Iliad and the Odyssey.
Okay.
And so the Iliad is largely a couple weeks near the end, like year 9, which is largely at the wrath of Achilles. It is not the entire war. It is nothing like that. And in fact, the Trojan horse is not referenced in the Iliad.
Yeah.
Which I thought it was.
You're
right. It's only partially referenced in the Odyssey. So then we get a nice reference in this. And this is the first maybe overt instance of this grounded realism where the horse that's half buried in the sand in Christopher Nolan's Odyssey is much more plausible as an item that someone might bring into a castle, as he said, compared to something on wheels. Like the other versions of the Trojan horse we've seen, they clearly look like they were made by like normal ship materials, like a plank of wood, and it's on wheels, and it just seems a bit suspicious.
Yes.
While here, you just have this half-buried thing, which could be some presence from the gods. It's a great statue. It just made more sense to me. Like, yeah, okay, I could see maybe you'd bring it in. They also really, Nolan et al. Really sold us like there's people inside, they're suffering, some of them are drowning, and 1 or 2 of them get stabbed. Because the guy who's doing his due diligence, why should we let this thing in the city? He's just stick his knife into various parts, as you reasonably think someone would. And they try to address that too. And then Sinon is left on the beach. This is played by Elliot Page as the hapless person who does not know their, military brethren are stuck inside the horse. So then they can convincingly believe and say these things while they're being killed. So this is a dramatic moment because then Odysseus is hearing his, trusted lieutenant of sorts being killed while having to muffle all this stuff. So I think they really did a great job having this Trojan horse, what it seemed plausibly could have happened.
Sure.
Yeah, although then again, when they then drop the rope and then just come out at the end, I was like, no one saw them get out of the horse?
They were all drunk. That's the story, right?
That makes a bit more sense, but the guards didn't seem that drunk. They just happened to be facing the other way.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't give me enough that they made sure all the guards were not looking at the horse as they go. Your thoughts on the horse, Adam?
I mean, obviously, it's the second best Trojan animal that I've seen in film. The first best being from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, the Trojan rabbit that they forget to get in. So that's why.
And then we pop out. Where are we? What? Ew. Right. Which is a good thing they didn't because it got, catapulted.
Yes. Yeah. And then it just smashes on the ground.
Those are some great construction noises, though. I think about those construction noises sometimes. I also think about them going, run away, because there's a lot of running away in this movie by Nolan.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, because they're on a voyage from one place to another. That's kind of what they're doing. They're encountering a series of dangers that they run away from. The basic plot of the Odyssey reminds me of the plot of Star Trek Voyager. I don't know if you're a Star Trek fan, Darren.
I don't know that well enough.
So Voyager, the ship goes to the Delta Quadrant. It's at the other end of the galaxy. Okay. And they're basically 70 years of like their top speed travel from Earth. So the whole story is like they're going back to Earth in the ship. And they just like encounter random things. And then there's like story. And then it resolves itself, and then they leave. And then the next episode, they run into another thing. And it only takes place over 7 years. So, spoiler, there's some speed ups. But yeah, I think that there's a timelessness to this story. It's just like it's going from point A to point B, and stuff happens. I mean, that's really what it is. It's a series of
the return,
a series of little things, right?
Oh, another overarching point, which I meant to mention earlier, is that in the grounded realism, there are just not that many gods in this.
Yes.
Compared to the original. Of course, it is fantastical. There are creatures which can't exist, don't exist, giants, cyclops, so on. They do mention the gods repeatedly.
Yep.
But there are not active gods. You don't see them on screen. They're not doing overt things. They're not talking overtly.
Yeah.
With an asterisk, yes, Matt Damon is interacting with like demigods, lower level gods.
Yeah, like
Calypso.
Zeus isn't in the cast.
Zeus is not in it. Athena, like is played by Zendaya, is referenced by Matt Damon kind of as the person who was sacrificed in the sack of Troy.
It's not clear if that was Athena or if he imagines the image of a person who he associates with
versus
Athena.
Like in the poem, like Athena is basically his main guardian.
Oh yes,
and she is navigating this and doing stuff to help him, and basically the Odysseus routinely interacts with actual gods that tell him something to do or not do.
Yeah.
And it's not just, we didn't sacrifice enough, or we didn't do the right type of sacrifice, or these sorts of things. So, if you are more, spiritual or less spiritual, you may feel one way or another about this. But it certainly is more plausible that it wasn't, this is not Lord of the Rings, this is not Harry Potter.
I think they downgraded some of the sort of demigods as well. Like Calypso and Circe are both supposed to be gods.
Yeah.
And maybe not Zeus-like gods, but at least immortal, right?
Yes.
And they could have just been normal people in this, Maybe doing a bit of magic, but not incredibly fantastical gods.
Right. So from what I understand, in the movie, the scene with Circe where the men are turned into pigs is remarkable. I just think it's one of the best scenes in the movie, done with practical effects. It's very, very impressive. And it's mainly that the men are eating certain food and they become consumed.
Yeah.
When I think other interpretations are, Circe has a magic wand.
Yeah.
And goes boop, and bops you on the head, and that turns you into something, which is kind of makes more sense, quote unquote, whatever sense might mean.
Sure.
Versus how did this happen otherwise? You're just eating the food. I don't get it. Why did this happen? Yeah. So you're not getting that level of godlikeness where they just wave a magic spell or wave a magic wand and something happens, but you are getting this demonstration of magical powers. I do think that was one of the best scenes for me.
That's pretty cool.
The other one was the Cyclops. Maybe we'll briefly talk about that. So I guess in the story of the Cyclops, it's somewhat similar, but it's the whole, there's many Cyclopses, Cyclopes. And they encounter one, and it is very large, and it does eat the men, and they do something similar. In the, I think in the original, they're hiding on the underside of the sheep, or at least in one of the interpretations. While in this one, they're putting stuff on their backs to feel like a sheep if you are touching them from above. This Cyclops was one of the scariest things I've seen. It really, because I don't see a lot of horror stuff, and it was so unnerving. I thought Guillermo del Toro would be proud. I thought it was very well done. The sound was deafening. It was so alarming, concerning, unnerving. I thought the use of a Cyclops, like a sort of a deformed face, which has a slanted face, and therefore only having one eye, made so much more sense to me. This is the grounded realism versus somehow only having one eye in the center of your head. This seems a lot less likely than someone who's had some sort of deformity. I mean, they're already a Cyclops, who has just somehow one eye in the center of the head. So I just thought Cyclops scene is probably one of the best scenes in the entire movie. And then Circe with to turn the men into pigs was another one. What'd you think? Cyclops,
I thought it was pretty cool. Truly a monster, right? While most of the other threats were maybe this is plausibly not really a monster. Maybe the giants are just big people, and we don't actually see what these sirens are.
True.
They don't look like mermaids. You kind of I think there's just people in seals next to each other, or is that one person? It's not super clear.
Yeah.
I think that was intentionally ambiguous a bit.
Yeah, I thought with the sirens, it would have been good to have them appear as women and then they turn into demons or something, right? The normal bait and switch type thing. I also thought the Cyclops, the original story, right, they actually do talk to each other because it turns out the creature can talk.
Yes.
And in the movie, we're told would you talk to ants? Which is cute as a line, but of course, we're logical over here at the Reality Check. I'm wait a minute. So say this thing is 60 feet tall, average man is 5-6 feet. That's only 1/10 the size.
Yeah.
An ant is much smaller than a person than 1/10. So I'm if there was a rat that could speak English, I would talk to a rat or a small dog, cat, weasel, something
I talk
like
to my
this.
cats all the time, and they just don't understand me because they're not sentient beings.
Or they do and they don't talk back. And so that doesn't quite make sense. I do like the original where it says, "What's your name?" And he says, "Nobody."
Nobody. Yeah.
And then when they blind him, he says, "Nobody did this to me."
Yeah.
And then there's a dick move by Odysseus once he gets out. He goes, "Haha, my name's not Nobody, it's Odysseus." Blah, right? And then that's because the Cyclops is the son of Poseidon, the god of the sea. Yes. Then Odysseus is cursed for the next many, many years every time. The wind blows him off course all the time, right? Yeah. In the movie, it did not seem as plausible. Because when he leaves, they're going to be safe. Most of the crew seem like they're going to be safe. And just as he's leaving, Odysseus can't help but fire another arrow at the Cyclops, which then enrages him. He chases them down, and then like men die. They literally get eaten. And he said, well, our men were attacked because they were killed in that cave. And this was sort of some vengeance recompense and so on. And yes, it is an act of hubris, but it wasn't sold to me as well as it might have been, say, in the poem.
Yeah, it wasn't as defensive.
Yeah, it seemed like, because Odysseus is thought to be this very smart, cunning person. Yes. And so, again, he's more strategic in this. He's not wily and a cunning in a negative way for the most part. We're not led to believe that. It's more of he's almost like a hero in this movie. He's not even an anti-hero. And, he doesn't seem to enjoy committing infidelity as he does like in the book or the poem. And there's other things that make him far more sketchy or less likable.
It was a little odd that I guess it was kind of assumed that he sleeps with Calypso. But it's a little more overt, I think, maybe in the
like
in the social
frequently.
Media, but yeah, they don't really show him like full on banging,
and
right?
Circe is supposed to be stunningly beautiful, and then I think in the poem he doesn't have a kid with her, but in other interpretations he does. But he definitely does sleep with her.
Okay,
so why not? You're there. It's kind of like, oh well, of course that's what's going to happen. Like, oh yeah, all right, okay.
One scene that was cool was the giants, the Lestrygonians, and that was a practical effect.
Yes, it was.
So I was surprised to see this. They see Matt Damon with his stunt double, and it was like a short Asian woman. It was like a 5-foot tall Chinese woman. And I'm like, what's going on? Matt Damon's not that short.
Yeah.
And it was basically for this scene, they got huge guys.
Yep.
And they got someone small that kind of, I guess, vaguely looked like Matt Damon's frame.
Yeah. So
from behind, this woman is being Matt Damon fighting these giant, and it looks like it's just CG or something.
It does.
And it's practical.
Yes.
That's, to me, I mean, Peter Jackson did a lot of practical effects, and he was doing like angles and stuff, but this is like practical. They were actually a different size, and that's kind of cool.
Well, I think, using every trick in the book. So the size difference, as you said, the giants were like 7-foot tall stuntmen. And then I believe one of those stunt doubles, she was 4'6".
Oh, wow.
So like,
okay, so less than 5.
And then you're right. So to scale, she just has to be like proportionate to scale to be Matt Damon's side. Because I think he's 5'9" or 5'10".
Yeah.
It was very impressive. I mean, there is a bit of a, why are they wearing armor? Who are these people? What's going on? Why is this way it is? Right.
Sure.
It was a very harrowing scene. Very unnerving scene.
Oh, yeah.
A friend pointed out that the trees moved. I did not notice this.
Oh, okay.
I thought kind of like some booby traps were set up in advance, but they said the trees kind of moved. And it's impressive that they kind of made it out at all, any of them. Yes. Right. But yeah, this is like, run away. Oh no, another thing is attacking us. Like, you guys got to get in that ship quicker because you're getting killed along the way. A very impressive scene though.
Very. I mean, I found the whole kind of ending scene pretty cool too. Like the suitors were so annoying that you're just waiting for the comeuppance, right? And I'm like, and I had read one version of the book, and so I knew that there was going to be like a bloodbath, pretty much. And I was just like, all right, I can't wait till we get to this scene. But they tease it out well, and they do the fake out with Matt Damon, and we kind of don't know it's him, and it is him. Well, as the viewers, we always know it's him.
Yeah,
I think they could have done a different thing where you didn't know it was him, and fooled the audience as well as the characters in the movie, because kind of like your wife doesn't recognize your voice. What's really going on here?
20 years, man.
20 years is a long time.
Well, you can end up talking. It's been a rough time at sea.
Yeah, but yeah, like that whole kind of end scene, and he's almost like Legolas. He's doing all this stuff with arrows, and we're like, give this guy a sword or something. Like, let's escalate this.
Yes.
And he gets kind of an axe, and he gets all these different things. I'm like, this excessively violent, but like a strangely like just kind of
cool. So some people like took issues like the Jason Bourne ending. I did not. It's also what the original largely had, from what I understand.
Yes.
So the suitors are there for like 3 years, really taking advantage of this hospitality.
Yeah.
Zinnia, or in the movie they call it Zeus's Law.
Yes.
Which is you're supposed to offer hospitality to someone who needs it, a foreigner or someone visiting.
Yeah.
And this is really like a heart of the movie.
Oh, it's a recurring theme throughout.
Exactly.
They go somewhere and they get hospitality, and
do you help strangers? Do you not? How are you treated? But there is, of course, this tension where the suitors, 108 of them, are abusing this hospitality.
Yes.
And Odysseus is largely our hero, and he is again going to, rectify this injustice. But at the same time, Odysseus and his crew, they sack Troy. And then they also raided some places along the way home. And like, you just kept attacking people though. Like, what? So there's like, you're supposed to offer hospitality, but also we're going to take your stuff.
Yeah, you took as much hospitality as Ithacus gave out. Right?
Kind of, right, exactly. And so, yes, coming near the end, I thought it was an interesting choice, we'll put it that way, by Nolan, that the son is not to fight these suitors. Because then he'll be exiled, because it's like the code, right? The code, right? While Odysseus can, and then if he's exiled, so be it. And then, his son can take the rightful place on the throne. In other versions, the son does fight. Yes. And there's sometimes like 2 other people who also fight, which to me is a bit more plausible. Like Matt Damon against 108 people. I don't care if you're Odysseus. No way. No way.
The numbers don't really
even if
work.
you have like one weapon. Now, if they're coming at you one at a time, like a bad fight movie, sure, you'll have a better chance. But you don't have enough weapons. He didn't have enough arrows. He barely enough axes. Like it doesn't. So like, really? You can do it all on its own? And so I think they mostly sold it where some of the people were just fearful. They're not going to rush the front. Partway through, after so many of them have died, they're like, okay, I'm just going to bow down before the rightful king, that sort of thing. Yeah. So I think it was mostly plausible, but there are times I'm thinking like, Matt Damon is not actually Jet Li. Right? So if you pictured it with Jackie Chan, you're like, oh yeah, I think Jackie Chan would actually take these people out. Yeah. They're these suitors are half drunk. They're not as polished. He's been at war. He's had to sharpen his skills. He has many more skills than they do. It's more plausible that he can take them out. But there's just so many, it stretches credulity. If it is supposed to be grounded realism, right? We keep coming back to this grounded realism. Yes. You're like, well, then once in a while you're thinking like, does that really happen?
They present him as being like really strong. Like he's the only person that can string this bow.
Yes.
But like, he still looks like 50-something-year-old Matt Damon.
Correct. So he is...
no offense to Matt Damon, but he's not Arnold Schwarzenegger. No. He's not like Dave Bautista or something. He's not like this massive guy.
Right. He does not look like Alan Ritchson who plays Reacher. Exactly. Right. You're like, oh, that guy. Yeah, I just would believe it. Yeah. Now, the bow thing, since you mentioned it, that's an interesting one because I did look that up. Is it really that hard to string it? No. So one is... it's a little bit hard strength-wise, but it's more harder technique-wise.
Oh, so that might be a bit more
It's an atypical type of bow.
Yeah, okay.
Where it's kind of reversed.
Yeah.
So you have to string it a certain way. Otherwise, it kind of just faults you or doesn't work the right way. Or if you do string it and then you go to shoot, it won't work. Oh. So a lot of these people probably think, well, they're strong enough, but it's not clear that
he knows his
correct.
Bow. He knows
so he is strong enough and he knows the technique. Yeah. And then on top of that, he also has the accuracy to fire the arrow through this challenge.
Of course.
Which in the book or the poem, that's not the main challenge to get Penelope, apparently. It's a different one, and we'll get into that in a moment. But I thought they could have at least had some guy fire the arrow too. Like, really, no one is that capable at all? Okay, fine. But, I guess it's the marital bed because they created this bed around an olive tree.
Oh, the tree, yes.
And that's Penelope's test. And then she finds it's really him because no one else would really know that. Mm-hmm. So again, these are, I think, decent adaptations to the thing. The plucking of the string, fantastic. That sound.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, what a great choice. And there's a couple background pieces of music, which I see that sort of, we'll call it some sort of flute, mainly a single note or two. I think that's well done. Nolan et al. Chose not to have a lot of music here. There's no orchestra. There's not a lot of stuff. They recreated ancient instruments, which is its own interesting thing, right? So you want grounded realism, and then he's trying to make it as like authentic as possible.
Authentic to a world that didn't really exist.
Well, there you go. So a world that didn't exist. Also, I don't care about the color of the costumes, right? So it's almost like it's its own interpretation of what would lead someone to have a feeling of authenticity versus actually be authentic. Yeah. Because it could be that if you give them all those very colorful costumes, like, this is not authentic. This looks like garbage. You're like, yeah, but then the historians are like, but it's correct. And then people just get taken out of the picture. So I think it was a good ending. We do like comeuppance. We do like, it's largely actually a positive story, right? In the poem, from what I understand, he takes his place on the throne and he lives to an old age. And here he is exiled with his wife, which is its own victory.
They do a little thing. They go retire.
Correct. Now, again, this is how the original with the god stuff, from what I understand, if you kill lots of people, their families will come and get revenge.
Oh,
and
okay.
But in the poem, like, Athena's like, let's just talk about it, we'll work it out. So a god intervenes to make sure that bad stuff doesn't happen. And even though Odysseus is exiled, it's plausible that the family would still want revenge on his son, even if the son just happened to be there. Also, like, who's going to believe it? All the other people are dead, right? They really just killed everyone except for, like, the core family.
Yeah.
Another main theme in Nolan's movie is suffering from the horrors of war. And we could almost clearly say Odysseus is suffering from PTSD in various ways.
They may not have that name for it, but it's the same idea.
Correct. Yeah. And I think there are some parallels to this in the original, but throughout the movie, Odysseus is racked with guilt. We get flashbacks. We don't know why, and then near the end, it's revealed why he feels so tormented. He was the one who came up with the Trojan horse, and it seemed like even though it ended this horrible 10-year battle, and that was the thing to do to win that war, the actual sacking, the obliteration, the siege of Troy was so destructive and terrible that he then come to think, like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Or I then violated Zeus's law.
Yep.
I then showed the ultimate violation of this hospitality by presenting a gift, a false gift, which then led to the destruction, brutality of all these people. And you can sort of see throughout that he's not a happy person. He's saddened by this. He's traumatized by this. He's lost in reminiscences and flashbacks by this. From what I understand in the original, there are some similarities here where it's not that Odysseus, like, I had a great time and I'm just trying to get home. There's a scene where this is not presented in the movie, but when he is washed ashore and he's talking to this group of people, not quite the Phoenicians, but something like that, some bard is singing the tale of Odysseus. And he doesn't just tell them to stop. He's weeping. Yeah. And they don't know why, because, like, he knows what he went through and he knows how terrible it was. And so there is an interesting, I think it was a good plot device.
Sure.
We'll say the emotional core of the movie is a man troubled by the decision he made, which seemed like the right move at the time, but, like, almost forever regretting afterwards. Sure. Even if he still thought it was the best option, hard to say. And that will forever haunt him.
Well, I mean, this is the reality of war.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that people regret what they do in wartime, but it's just so traumatic and it's just so terrible. Like, you have to kill people, even if you don't fundamentally regret that choice. It is a terrible thing, which ruins you as a person, right?
Well, so this is where you don't have to kill them as brutally.
Sure.
And,
no.
And you definitely don't have to commit massive sexual assault, which the movie largely avoids entirely, by the way.
Sure.
Some people thought this movie was very violent and gory and bloody. I'm like, was it though? To me, there were some disturbing scenes, especially the Cyclops, and there is some blood, but in the States it's R-rated, and in Canada it's PG-13. If this was an R-rated movie, like this is not Tarantino blood. This is not John Wick blood. This is not the blood you may be used to in many other violent R-rated movies. I think there was a very sanitized version of war.
Sure.
Now, there's still war. It's war. But as I said to a friend, like, it's not a romantic comedy, because they're like, oh, what about my teenager coming? Like, what do you expect? I don't think it's a tale about war. Anyway, so I actually thought it wasn't that bloody. Sure. Again, there were some disturbing scenes, but I thought the war could have been portrayed so much worse, which would then have given the audience a visceral sense of just how terrible.
Instead of them just telling us, showing us
when the Cyclops is eating the people, you're like, oh, this is horrific.
Yeah.
When the sack of Troy happens, you're like, yeah, this is terrible. Yeah. But, like, if you start to think of what actually happens in war, at the same time, I don't think Nolan really wants to traumatize his audience. That's also not the goal.
You watch, like, a battle in Game of Thrones, it's more bloody than that.
There you go. Right, exactly. And so the choices were made, and that's fine. I don't think it needed to be that way, but I did think it's interesting. We're sort of sold that war is terrible, while at the same time being shown a very sanitized version of this. Because also, slavery was so abundant.
Oh, there are so many slaves in this movie, and they just don't really get into it too much. But a lot of those people are slaves.
Oh, and they would have to do X, Y, Z, including forced copulation, all these sorts of things that are terrible, that are kind of just swept under the rug. And this is where you get some insight. Where near the end, a slave person is washing Matt Damon's feet before it's revealed that he is Odysseus, and that person recognizes him. In the movie, it seems like this woman recognizes his face. But in the poem, I believe, the person recognizes the scar on his leg that they would have known from 20 years ago when they would wash his body. And this is like, oh yes, slaves knew the bodies of certain people more intimately than their partners did.
Sure.
Because they had to wash them all the time.
Yeah.
And so you're sort of thinking, oh yes, there's this world where the Greeks aren't nearly as terrible as they actually were, or basically the ancient world seems a little bit better than it actually was. Yeah. Now, again, things are terrible. Raids happen. People die. It's not like it's rosy, right? You're lost at sea. The importance of a warm bath is so frequent in parts of the poems, right? Like, oh yes, cleanliness, which we normally would have, or food. You're just going to starve to death. Or every time you leave, you have to depend on the kindness of strangers.
Yep.
No one made this point. This is why that Zeus's law is so important. Like, you just, there's no phones, right? There's no email. You can't bring everything with you. Not really. And you just really need the hospitality of others. So I thought, okay, we're blending all over the place here now. But I did think it could have been more violent and still been not too violent. I don't necessarily need that, but I thought it was an interesting choice that was made. But yeah, just to reiterate, I think it was a great emotional core. There's a reason for why Odysseus feels this way. It's because the thing that he unleashed caused so much harm. And as such, I know at different times on his journey, I felt he didn't want to go home. I don't know if you felt that.
Well, I mean, that's part of the core part of the story. That's why he stays with Calypso for so long. I mean, she obviously gives him the stuff to make him forget his memories. But yeah, he and I think that's a common sentiment of actual people in wartime as well. Like, yeah, you want to go home, but there's a lot you're bringing back. Yeah. Right. And you want a bit of separation. And I'm like, people used to come back on boats, and by the time they got back, they were
true.
Now they fly, and I was in a war zone 24 hours ago. It must be impossible.
Yeah, sometimes they get like 3 days of detox, and it's not enough.
Yeah.
So I got the impression from the movie that even though Calypso is feeding him lotus flower and drugging him, he still didn't quite want to go home himself.
Yes.
Well, a friend who watched it, they didn't get that impression at all. They thought, it was the drugging, though. It was mainly the drugging that was preventing him from going. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like Nolan gave us the impression that he wasn't quite ready himself to go, even though the drugs were helping him. Now, the poem is not quite that. They're kind of combining two different things there with Calypso and different lotus flowers. But that's fine. I think it worked for the movie and for what it was. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so one issue that obviously there was a lot of criticism prior to the movie was like, they call it quote-unquote DEI casting, right? Black woman is Ellen of Troy and Elliot Page, who's transgender, who cares, He'd been in other Nolan films, and he always recycles his people.
Yes, he does.
One thing I did notice while watching it, like I was kind of prepared to I'd be watching like a live action Disney movie where half the people are black or whatever. I'm just like, this is a very white looking movie.
Yeah.
There's a couple of people that are of different ethnicities, but like it wasn't like a super diverse cast. It wasn't like this crazy forced diversity. It'd be like, maybe you don't agree with Ellen of Troy looking like Ellen of Troy, but whatever. It's the decision he made. Personally, I couldn't be bothered by it at all.
Yeah. No, I thought it was, when I saw it, I'm like, this is such a non-issue. Yeah. Also, the people are complaining about, they're barely in the movie.
Yeah.
Like
very small
5
roles.
minutes.
Yeah.
5 minutes of a 3-hour movie. It's almost nothing. As you said, it's largely a white cast. It's American or British. Which
they weren't Greek.
No, they weren't. And so when I saw, because now I looked into this, like, there was a miniseries of sorts with Armand Assante playing Odysseus from 1997. And like, I mean, he's not Greek, but he certainly looks more Greek than Matt Damon and Anne Hathaway, who's like, so
she got dark hair.
Well, yeah, exactly. So I just thought, there's part of me which thinks, again, it's very American. You can take what you want from it. And John Barenthal, if you want to see the Punisher as Agamemnon's brother, you can. So I think they maybe could have made some effort, but that's a personal preference, right? Even Eric Bana looks more Mediterranean as the Hulk than as Hector than the characters in this movie.
Sure.
So I don't know. Even Brad Pitt had more of a tan, right? So you didn't see that movie, but Brad Pitt when he played Achilles,
I'm familiar with what he looks like.
Exactly. He's also supposed to look godlike. That's fine.
Well, he's Brad Pitt. So
well, there you go.
Sorry, no offense, but I think Brad Pitt's more attractive than Matt Damon. I don't think that's controversial.
Yes, that's true.
Especially 15 years ago or whenever that movie
that's
came
true. And even though they both worked out a ton.
I feel like a lot of this cast was kind of old, which is fine.
Yep.
Because it's like 20 years later.
Correct.
So like 20 years ago, Anne Hathaway was younger, like whatever.
Yeah, you're right. They're supposed to be older. Yeah. Except for the Tom Holland character, who seems, somewhat age appropriate.
Yeah.
But I thought it was just big nonsense. Like, people complain about all sorts of things, right? And even, I'm complaining about all sorts of things, but not like from a moral injustice point of view.
Oh, yeah.
This is like minor personal preference.
The level of anger is not is not equivalent to like a casting decision for a silly movie.
Like, is the person a good actor? Like, that's all I care about. Right? That's my main complaint. The acting could have been better, not like the appearance, facial appearance, or the external appearance of the actor.
Yeah, the cast was still. They were all still very pretty.
Yes, of course. They're the high Hollywood standards, of course. They're still very well done. And again, they're good actors. Just like wanted, Cillian Murphy does such a good job.
He's so good.
even Tom Hardy, when he really, puts the effort in, he can really deliver, right? Yeah.
So just a bit of background. I know there's a lot of versions of this. I'm not really a scholar of the Odyssey. I'd never even read or listened to a version of it until recently.
Let's be honest. Adam and I know one Homer more than any other, and his last name is Simpson.
Dope. So when I was like, okay, before I watch this movie, I want to, listen to an audio version of one of the versions, which I think audio works for this because most people were illiterate and could not read when this poem was being told.
It's supposed to be an oral presentation.
That's how you're supposed to get it, even though I'm not listening to it in ancient Greek and it was probably made to be read. So I looked, and Audible gave out a free Emily Wilson version, and I'd heard people complaining about this version. So I went out and I was like, what's the best version? There's no answer to that question, but I listened to an audiobook version of a Robert Fagel's translation read by Ian McKellen, who did a really good job.
Well, there's a good actor. Speaking of,
it was very good. So that was good. I enjoyed it, but like when I listened to that, I had like no frame of reference for the story, so I was like a little confused and I didn't really get it. But then like as I'd see trailers, I'm like, okay, now I kind of understand the story and I can anchor it a bit. And then more recently, I was like, okay, I'll listen to this Emily Wilson version. I'm like 3/4 through that. But there was controversy there. That the version I listened to has like a 3.5 hour like intro just talking about it, which to me was actually useful because she gives a bit of context for all of these things, and here's like the cultural context of these scenes, and here's all this stuff about hospitality and all that. And that one's read by Claire Danes, who I like as well. She's quite good. But she doesn't have a British accent, and that's fine. So I had heard that Christopher Nolan was inspired by this Emily Wilson version.
Correct, yep.
Which was one of the things that had people all outraged for a while. Realistically, I don't know if that was ever really a problem. But then she saw the movie, and then she had a problem with the movie.
Correct. Which
I think is really funny. I read a bit of that article. Darren, you maybe have more thoughts on that.
Yeah, so that's a good setup. So I had even less context than Adam. Yeah. As you know, I like to read the books, but I never studied these when I was younger. I was never that interested in Greek mythology, despite the Superman. Sure. I'm like the current Greeks, the Wonder Woman, the Flash, the Superman. I mean, they just stole the Greek gods, let's be honest.
Yes.
So over the years, I have quite liked Stephen Fry's presentations, these reimaginings of the Greek tale. So Mythos was the first one, then Heroes, then Troy, and then recently the Odyssey. And each one talks about a different aspect of Greek culture, and Stephen Fry narrates them all, and he's delightful. So you get etymology along the way, and you get insight into XYZ, and it's just reasonable enough, because I don't know the source material well enough. It just seems, Stephen Fry's smarter than I am about this stuff, so I'll kind of trust him. And you're like, galactic comes from this, and that the Milky Way comes from that, and this and that. And all these nice little things about why the world is the way it is, because we're so influenced by Greek mythology and the Western canon, Western culture. All that to say is, I intentionally chose to not read anything in advance, because I thought, well, knowing me, being who I am, it's not like it's in the book. I'd be doing this. And I thought, you know what? I can do that after I see the movie. I'm going to see the movie first, and then, as you said, I kind of now have an anchor.
Yes.
And well, rightly or wrongly, this is where it does become the cut of history. Yeah. That whenever I read about the Cyclops, of course I'm going to picture the Nolan thing. It's burned into my brain now. It was so unnerving that's it. If I can't imagine there's another take, well, maybe sometime in the future, but at least in the near term, this is what that is. And so now when I think of like the book, it's how did that compare to the movie kind of thing, when of course the book and the poem 3,000 years old came first. All that said, I've now gone through a bit more of the Odyssey by Stephen Fry, which parallels, I think, the original poem a bit more. So you're getting a bit of the sequence. You're getting a bit more of the front matter. Again, like the Nolan movie is not really the whole poem. The whole poem is like 24 books. And it's not all about what we see in the movie. The movie leaves tons of things out, right? As Adam mentioned before the show, Odysseus' father, not mentioned at all. Yep. Of course he's in it, right? There's a lot more about like father and son and mother and son relationship stuff. There's other gods.
The gods interacting is a big thing that's omitted completely.
Tons of gods interacting. There's other elongated stories which were just shrunk or combined for the movie. Yep. There's a lot more that happens afterwards, like he just lives longer and reigns. And so all these things were kind of just left out. And all that to say is I'm still enjoying the Stephen Fry thing. It's just, if you like the Greek myths, I suggest checking them out. Okay, back to the Emily Wilson thing. So yes, she, I think, had a review in the London Review of Books, which maybe is like 4 or 5 days old at this point, so in the 20s of July, where she was exceptionally critical about this. Yep. She just, basically, we can look it up, but like almost said nothing was good. Like in every possible way, this movie sucked, is almost what she said. Like, it robbed it of this, it robbed it of that, and she was like, and there was no sex scenes. It was even this was a complaint. It was even this was a complaint. And then at the very end, because I remember like there's a London Review article, then CBC covered this, so I read the CBC article, and it said at the very end, she's like, well, but it has driven a lot of interest. Like her book sales are up, of course.
Of course
and
they are.
As an educator, this is good. And she's like, and my sons loved it. This is how it ends.
Oh, that's funny.
It is very funny. It is very funny.
How old are her sons? Did she say?
I think they're teenagers. But and so, but then I saw the actual text though. She is excoriating, right? Yeah. And as Adam said, like she was criticized for her interpretation.
Yes.
And coincidentally, I listened to the Daily episode, New York Times podcast, The Daily, where they talked to Emily Wilson and the woman who wrote Circe about the Odyssey about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Before it came out.
Before the film came out.
Yeah, and they're largely positive about all sorts of things Greek, right? And the story of Homer and the Odyssey. And at the very end, Emily Wilson says like, oh yeah, well, of course he should do his own thing. Like, it's fine. Like, he can have his interpretation. I have mine. Like, almost like a more the merrier vibe. There was nothing like, if he does this, it'll be terrible. The interviewer even said like, if this doesn't have something, are you going to be very concerned? Sure. And both guests said it'd be great if there was more role for women. And because Nolan doesn't necessarily do that a lot in his movies, and of course the original poem, doesn't have it much. Yeah. So it's not like he's deviating much from source material. In fact, he may be even giving them more prominence in some ways, the Nolan movie than other times. And maybe that wasn't it. But I don't know what changed for her, Emily Wilson, between when she said that and when she saw it, and how people reacted to it. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me at all. It does not make sense. As you said, there's no definitive translation because it's ancient Greek. Language is going to be highly variable, highly interpretable. Yeah. Even, the same exact English language sentence amongst people who from the exact same culture might be understood differently, let alone something from 800 BC from 400 years prior.
And she openly embraces her own differences in her own translation. Yeah. It's very odd.
Yeah. So maybe it's because Nolan cited her book as inspiration that she felt the need to distance herself from that. Yes, I don't know. This is actually in the fly in this moment. I'm like, maybe that's the reason that she's like, no, this was not my take. Yeah. I don't want to be responsible for this.
Sure.
And I don't know. It's very odd. I said, I think it really is the more the merrier. Again, you have all your other interpretations. There'll be more in the future.
I've always felt that way. Like, I feel this way about like Terminator movies. Like, oh, this isn't the best Terminator movie. Who cares? Like, Terminator 3 doesn't take away from Terminator 2. And Terminator Salvation, I don't like it. But it doesn't take away from Terminator 3.
It doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to.
I mean, there is part of me that understands it does kind of little take away, but it shouldn't. You're right. It shouldn't. It exists as its own thing. That said, sometimes a movie does kind of resolve everything.
Well, sometimes a movie will reinterpret things that happened in other movies, right? Mm-hmm. That's a little different. Right. But Terminator, it's time travel. Who cares?
Right. Well, I guess if you felt there was closure, but you can always open it up again. And we don't. Good job, Adam. You managed to work Terminator into our story about the Odyssey. When Nolan stuck in that Terminator scene, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I think. And Joyce Carolyn Oates, who's an author in her own right, just came out today criticizing Emily Wilson for criticizing Christopher Nolan. Kind of like basically the reasonable thing we're saying, which is like, what, can't people have their own interpretation here? Yeah. He's done a solid. How many people, let's be honest, would ever think about Homer's poem and epic and explore it if not for Christopher Nolan doing it?
Absolutely.
Right?
Fair. Absolutely
like, honestly, if there was another medium tier director that made this movie, I'm not sure I would have seen it. Maybe I would have seen it at home, but I would have not gone to see it in theaters.
Would I have gone to see Ridley Scott's The Odyssey? I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, Troy was interesting in its own right, but those large movies have a big hit and miss. But Christopher Nolan, I'm curious enough, which then maybe segues to Christopher Nolan movies. And some people like, how does this rank? Now, for me, the top tier, I haven't seen Memento in a while, and The Prestige is also excellent. But in true top tier for me, you have sort of Dark Knight, you have an Oppenheimer, and you have Inception. Now, Adam and I have a fundamental disagreement about Dark Knight.
But I like it. It's just not my top.
I mean, Dark Knight Rises, terrible. Batman Begins was decent. Interstellar, again, Christopher Nolan's great at having some like really, really good scenes.
Yes.
But there's too much of Interstellar that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yes.
Because this is like, physics background of sorts.
Absolutely.
And even I was annoyed where, when they each on that planet where 1 hour is 7 years, they move so slowly. This scene keeps getting, they land, they're still buckled, and McConaughey's like, let's go. And they're like, okay. And they slowly move. Like each second is so long. Why aren't you people more motivated to move quickly? Why didn't you have TARS do the whole recon?
Another way of saying that is that everyone gets older, but he stays the same age.
Well done, Adam. Well done.
So I stole that joke from somebody.
That's a deep cut. So all to say, Interstellar and the music, right? The music of Interstellar, there's so many scenes, and like the docking scene, like these are very, very memorable, and the music will stay with us forever. The music of the Odyssey, I don't think it can stay with us forever as much. I think Oppenheimer, which some friends didn't like at all, again, maybe more just in the physics and the subject matter, but I thought it was just so well done, given it is largely people talking.
Yeah.
Right? That's a long talking moving, which is completely different than, say, the Inception, where, again, the core of Inception doesn't really make sense. Like, how does the stream thing work? Why didn't he just visit his kids? Why did the kids didn't visit him? Why couldn't they get on a plane? Like, what? But, it's moving fast enough.
Serves the plot.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And it works enough, and the special effects were great, and that sort of thing.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to make sense because it's all in his dream anyway.
Well... So do you have a loose list of fave? No.
Number 1 is The Prestige.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't know. I just, that's a movie I just watch and rewatch, and there's levels to it, and there's even like, I don't know, it bamboozled me, right? Like it's a twist movie.
No
like
spoilers.
if you haven't seen The Prestige, go watch it.
Yes.
And even there's a potential other interpretation, and I had to rewatch it, and that interpretation didn't make sense. But there's a lot of things in here. It's a movie about the Star Trek transporter. Batman Begins, my number 2.
Number 2.
I know a lot of people say Dark Knight's better than Batman Begins. I still like Dark Knight. I just like Batman Begins more. And then I was gonna do an ordered list today, and I just didn't have time. But it's probably. Yeah, Memento's up there. Obviously, it's kind of a more simple movie. It's not like super sci-fi. But Interstellar, I really like.
Did you ever see Dunkirk? I still haven't.
I haven't
it's
seen
on my list.
Dunkirk.
So that could be in there, by the way. Just want to acknowledge that I haven't seen enough. And also, I guess his early movie, The Following or something, which is more of a smaller project, which I haven't seen.
That.
And, Insomnia was okay. Like, it was fine. But it didn't really feel like a Christopher Nolan movie because he didn't write it in the same way his brother didn't write it. And the acting's fine. So
yeah, like, at the end of the day, it's like Jonathan Nolan and David Goyer are as responsible for the success of a lot of these films as Christopher Nolan is. He's obviously a great director, but, like, the scripts of some of these movies are what make them really kind of
very
fantastic.
much so. And when he was asked, because you just came from Oppenheimer, did you bring any of that into this movie? And he did say yes. I can't remember what he exactly said in detail, but as someone else has said, someone has unleashed destruction upon the world and then is forever saddened by what they've done. You're like, oh, that's actually the same plot point. And so this is almost a sequel to Oppenheimer.
He loves fire, like. The burning horse, like, there's a fire-breathing horse in Batman Begins. And then you have, like, the Trojan horse on fire. Like, he kind of keeps coming back to these things.
I mean...
Which is it's weird to have 2 flaming horses in 2 movies that the same person did. And apparently it's significant of something.
Okay, maybe I'll give you that. But I think because he's done so many movies, it's more like if you talked about his theme of time. Like, clearly, he loves time, asynchronous, all that stuff. Slowing it down, speeding it up, the effects on everything else.
Yeah.
Different types of relationships, coming home, obviously people getting to spend time with Anne Hathaway. Like, this is the 3rd time. Seriously, right? Like, if you count Interstellar, this is the 3rd time the hero goes to live with Anne Hathaway. You're like, Christopher Nolan, do you want to go live with Anne Hathaway?
Not a terrible ending. I'll just put it out there.
I think Dark Knight Rises might be his worst.
Oh.
Like, I'm a Batman fan, and it was just... Again, there's some great scenes.
It's
if you
just
think back
not
to
as
certain
good as
scenes,
his other 2 Batman films.
But also because he's done so many good movies, though.
Yeah.
Like, something has to be his worst movie, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a strong negative feeling. Some people didn't like Tenet. I still thought it was fine. Right. Tenet was very much like, it doesn't really make sense if you think about it too much. No. If you don't worry about it and you just
go along for the ride,
just accept it. From a narrative point of view, it works.
So you raise a good point. I almost blocked out Tenet because I did not like it for the reasons you mentioned. Again, some fantastic scenes. Like, again, he likes time.
And I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's witty. It's
But like the whole thing, you're like, oh, but this feels like it's like resting on a pile of sand in a house of cards type thing. It doesn't cohere. Yeah. So a lot of his other movies, like, you got to buy the initial premise. Yeah. Again, like, something happens in dreams, then you just go with it.
Yeah.
But with Tenet, I did find it harder to swallow, even though, like, they almost look at the camera and say, don't think about it. And like, all right, I'm trying.
That was Austin Powers, but yes, it was essentially that.
You go look it up when they basically say, like, it's best not even explaining it.
Yeah.
I was being a bit facetious. He doesn't look at the camera, but the character says out loud, almost like, don't think about it too much. It's like, okay, Chris. So I do have to see. I want to see The Prestige again. I do want to see.
I can link you the Blu-ray if you want.
Yeah. It's as a impressive director, I think he's fantastic, right? And he knows how to do so many things well. And I think a lot of disagreements I'm having are not really from him failing at an objective.
Yep.
It's more just disagreeing on some of the goals. Right? Like, I think that he did achieve his vision, and I think he usually achieves his vision, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
So if I didn't like Tenet, it's like, well, that's what he wanted to make. Like, I don't, like other movies, you're like, oh, even the director's like, yeah, I tried and I didn't quite work out, or I didn't know what I was going to do. But to have this level of skill where, you watch these interviews with the actors, and especially the scene with the Trojan horse, and Matt's like, oh, so how are we going to film? He's like, I don't know. We'll just figure it out on the day. Because he and Hoyt, I think is the name of the cinematographer, there's so much about what they need with the angles and whatnot that they're going to get it, and it's going to be good enough. Except for the focus issue sometimes. So if you've made it this far, congratulations, listener. This listeners prattle on about our thoughts about the Christopher Nolan movie. I thought it's worth seeing. It's worth seeing in theater. True IMAX, I think, would probably be best. But if you're going to see it in theaters, try to see it in IMAX. For me, the feeling of the sound, not just the hearing of the sound, was part of the experience. It really was significant. And, you know, given the Odyssey is kind of a follow-up to the Iliad, I look forward to the sequel to this one, Odysseus Rises.
I think the sequel will be the Iliad because Christopher Nolan likes to tell things out of order.
Snap.
He'll just make it work somehow.
He certainly would get enough money to do so.
Absolutely.
Until next time, think better, act better.
Peace out, Cuboidicus.
For show notes or to discuss this episode, visit our Facebook page and website at trcpodcast.com. For general inquiries or to send a topic or parody suggestion, email info@trcpodcast.com. Help support the show by leaving a review on iTunes and liking us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at TRC_podcast.
Outtakes.
Yeah, it seemed like, because Ulysses, I keep saying that. Boom!